What up, y'all? This is Tracy from Nerd Squish, and today we are ranking Grady Hendrix books. Oh yeah. Back in 2014, a little old guy, you may have heard of him, Grady Hendrix, he came out with a book called Horrorstör, and since then he has become one of the horror legends when it comes to fictional novels. So not only has he taken over the horror genre, but he's taken over my mind because I'm obsessed with his books. And I just finished his most recent novel, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, and I thought this was the perfect opportunity to go through all of his horror fictional novels, give them a ranking, break them down, and let you know what my thoughts are. Two warnings. Number one, I apologize that you have to look at the pimple on my face. It's unfortunate. I don't like it, but if I have to look at it and not like it, so do you. Number two, Grady Hendrix is, like I said, a huge author right now, and I feel like people have a lot of opinions on him, and I feel like my list it may anger some of you, okay? But feel free, this is a safe place, okay? Drop in the comments as we're going along. If you have strong feelings, you love, you hate a book, let me know. I want to talk books. I want to know your feelings for some of my favorite Hendrix books. So without further ado, let's get into this stack. Starting at the bottom of our list, number 7, we have the Final Girl Support Group. This book is about, well, I don't really remember. This is why the book is at the bottom of the list. I read it. I know I did. But I couldn't tell you one detail about it that the title doesn't already tell you. So to give you a little background on the book, it's exactly what it says. It's a group of final girls that have survived these horrific, stereotypical horror situations, and they meet and get together and try to help each other get through these crazy things that they've experienced. And all of them, as a result of these terrible things that they've witnessed, they're messed up. They're not living the best lives. Then one day, one of them is found murdered, and they discover that there's this plot to kill all of the final girls. So that's the story, but again, I don't remember even like one character's name without looking it up. Like, there's something about this book that it just, like wind, nothing was retained. It just didn't click with me. This is the only book like that in this list because obviously I started this video and I was like, oh, I love Grady Hendrix. First book, I'm like, I don't know anything this is about. So let's move on. Let's forget that one happened. Okay, let's move on to number 6, shall we? Number 6, we have the most recent Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. Now, in this story that's set in the 70s, we have a 15-year-old girl that is sent to a home for pregnant teens because she is, well, you guessed it, pregnant. Our main character's name is Fern, although that's not her real name. All the girls in the home are given a nickname, and they're told not to give any details about their life, their real names, where they live, where they go to school, nothing. So she's forced to live in this home filled with pregnant teens, and basically they're sent there to, live there throughout their pregnancy, have their babies, and then forget that anything ever happened to them. However, they're forced to do chores, eat just terribly strict diets, and are essentially treated like trashy sinners. You have to remember, this takes place in the 70s, okay? So it's a different time. I mean, maybe not in all parts of the world, but it is a different time. And it really gives you that glimpse of like, how much the world has actually changed since then. Then one day, the librarian gives Fern an occult book that basically gives her and the girls all the power that they need to, get revenge on those who have treated them poorly. But just like Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility, and the price that they have to pay for this power is blood. However, this book didn't do it for me. I really liked the characters, and that was about it. I just wanted more of the witchy element. Grady is a horror author, but his horror usually dives into the aspect of horrors of real life. This book dives into the horror of being a teenage girl in the 70s that gets pregnant. It wasn't relatable to me, as someone who is not pregnant, has never been pregnant, and also has a fear of pregnancy. It just, I didn't want to read it. It was kind of, I realized I'm a person, I'm like, oh, I like horror, I like gore. But it was like horror that I was like, oh, I don't want to touch that. That makes me uncomfortable. I know being pregnant and having a baby is like a gift. I know that. But no one can tell me it's beautiful. It's gross. It's gross. Does something great happen in the end? Yes. But it's gross. And so like, I just personally didn't enjoy reading about all those aspects. And I think you'll see going forward, the Grady Hendrix books that I like the most are the ones that are perhaps the most relatable to me. Coming in at number 5, we have Horrorstör. Have you ever experienced the horror of being stuck in the never-ending maze that is IKEA? Have you imagined that scenario, but with supernatural phenomenon involved? That's this book. We have a group of employees at an IKEA-esque store called Orsk, and they start noticing this vandalism happening in the store that they can't capture on security cameras. So they decide to stay overnight in the store to figure out what's happening. And of course, as white people do, they hold a seance so they could call the ghosts to the table and see what's going on. And you see where this is going. You see, good old Orsk was built on the site of an old prison whose warden would torture his inmates in an attempt to rehabilitate them. So now, those ghosts are trying to do that to the current day employees. The thing that's so unique and creative about this book is that it is designed like an IKEA catalog. Each chapter is named after like an IKEA-inspired Scandinavian, oh, that's hard to say, Scandinavian named product. It's ridiculous and it's hilarious. Grady's work is often described as horror comedy, although a lot of his books, I don't really see where the comedy is. This one is probably the one that lives up to the horror comedy title the most. This book is littered with satire and it's so much fun to read. Coming in at number 4, we have the book that perhaps I feel like he is most known for, my best friend's Exorcism. And rightly so, this is the first Hendrix book that I ever read, and it's the one that started my obsession, mostly for this cover. Because if there's one thing about a Grady Hendrix book, you know it is gonna have just that eye-catching, beautiful cover. And this, I mean, it's like the VHS inspired 80s style. It hooks you. The book is set in 1988 and it follows the story of two best friends, Abby and Gretchen. You see, Abby, she had a birthday party and the only person that showed up was Gretchen. From that point forward, they become best friends. They are inseparable and do everything together, including taking LSD at a lake house with some friends where Gretchen disappears off into the woods and then becomes possessed. As a result, Gretchen starts to act very strangely. She's not bathing, she's not changing her clothes, the girl's looking ratchet, okay? Then one day, she starts acting normal again. She's bathing, she's wearing nice clothes, and she randomly becomes the most popular girl in school. The unfortunate part about that is that she does not want to be Abby's friend anymore. So basically, this is Jennifer's body, but with big hair, set in the 80s. As with many of Grady's books, the real horror of the book is not Hollywood-type horror. It's the horrors of real life. So this focuses on the horrors of growing up. The person you are in high school and the friends you make in those hallways aren't necessarily going to be the same forever. You'll grow older, you'll change, and your friends will change. It's inevitable, it's not always for the better, and it straight up sucks sometimes. But hey, that's life. So to set this real life fear amongst supernatural horror is brilliantly written and beautifully blended. And as of today, this is the only Grady Hendrix work that has been adapted to the screen. It has a movie, which I personally did not care for, but luckily, all of his works right now have gotten deals and they're going to be turned into either movies or TV shows. We'll maybe talk about that a little bit higher into the ranking, but I'm very excited about this. Coming in at number 3, we have We Sold Our Souls. This book combines my love for horror and metal in all the best ways. It follows the story of Chris, who was the lead guitarist for a very popular band in the 90s, and they were about to make it big. And right at that point, the lead singer decides to go solo, thus breaking up the band. And now Chris lives an unhappy life at 47. She's living in her mother's basement and working at a Best Western. Her former lead singer, Terry, announces this huge music festival. And of course, seeing his name, how big he is, it stirs up all this resentment and anger that Chris has been holding on to for all these years. So Chris decides to confront Terry and get together with all her old bandmates. And this is where she discovers that Terry sold their souls to the devil for fame. And not only that, but this new festival, Hellstock, it's pretty much an elaborate plan to take more souls and become more powerful. This book perfectly depicts the sense of when you're young and you're into music and you play music and you just think music is life and I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life and it's always gonna be this huge part, I'm gonna be this famous musician. And then you grow up and society makes you lose a little piece of yourself. This book depicts that feeling perfectly. Y'all know how it is. When you're a teenager, you live and breathe the music you play, the bands you listen to. And even if you continue to surround yourself by music when you're older, it's a little bit different. You know, that passion, it's still there, right? But it's not quite the same. There is a specific scene that takes place at a rest stop that haunts me. Haunts me. Every time I pass a rest stop on a road trip now, I just, you know, there's a reason where if I'm on a road trip and I gotta pee, I gotta get a snack, I'm not going to a rest stop, okay? We're going to gas stations, we're going to McDonald's because I can't get the scene out of my head. It's just, it's so good, and I definitely feel like this is one of his books that is severely underrated. Coming in at number 2, we have the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This book, set in the 90s, follows the life of bored housewife Patricia Campbell. She's the caretaker of her senile mother-in-law, the wife of a husband that works way too much, and the mother of 2 teenage children that, you know, don't really need her as much anymore. She's definitely in a weird stage where she has lost the joy in life. The only thing that she really looks forward to anymore is her book club that loves to read about true crime. So one day a newcomer moves into the neighborhood. He's young, he's hot, he's mysterious, and she's definitely attracted to him. But then some weird stuff starts happening and a bunch of local children go missing, and she suspects that this new hot mysterious neighbor is behind the disappearances. At first, no one believes her. They think she's crazy. But then eventually her book club comes around. They get together to try to kill the neighborhood vampire. Again, much like We Sold Our Souls, there is a scene in this book that is gory and horrific, and it lives rent-free in my head. Whoa, how did my necklace get over here? Let's fix that. Let's just say I wasn't scared of rats until this book. Now, if you were to judge a book by its cover, you'd think this is a cute little story about a vampire, perhaps a romance, right? I mean, look at it. It's eye-catching. It's beautiful. It's a minimalist. But this ain't no cute vampire. This is not a cute little vampire at all. Now, although the vampire is hot, he's old school and he is just violent and vicious and everything that a vampire should be. Because let's face it, since the Twilight craze, vampires have become fangless, mushy love interests. And I'm not hating on a story where a girl falls in love with a monster, okay? I have been known to crush on quite a few vampires and werewolves in my day, obviously. However, there needs to be something behind that. Actual death and violence and horrific things, okay? Because otherwise it's not really a monster, it's just some guy that lives forever, right? This is the book that not only am I excited to see adapted on screen, but it's one that I actually have faith in. The very same duo that gave us The Righteous Gemstones is working on a series of this for HBO. And if you've watched Righteous Gemstones, you know that this is going to be brilliant. This was almost my number 1 because it was my favorite Grady Hendrix book for the longest time until the next one came out and it quickly replaced it and took the top spot. Boom! Number 1 Grady Hendrix book is How to Sell a Haunted House. And y'all, I struggled with this. I struggled back and forth whether it was going to be this one or Southern Book Club because I love them both so much. However, Grady's take on a haunted house hit me so hard. This book follows the story of Louise, who has to go back to her hometown when she finds out that both of her parents have died. She's forced to work with her lowlife brother Mark, who she does not get along with at all, to settle her parents' estate. And I think we all slightly fear the thought of going through all of our parents' stuff when the inevitable day that they pass away for a multitude of reasons. But for Louise, it's a little different. It is stuffed with her mother's handmade puppet collection, and there is something inside that house doing everything in its power to stop it from being sold. This book takes the evil doll trope, let's say child's play, and uses it to explore the frustrating world of grief and dysfunctional families. I read this book 5 years after my dad passed, and it felt like a form of therapy to me. It comforted me to see someone go through the process of grieving a parent, but then also dealing with the BS drama of the family dynamic that's left behind after someone passes away. This right here is one of maybe 4 books that has made me cry. And when I say cry, ugly cry. Ultimately, that's why this was bumped to number 1. This is not a typical Grady Hendrix book for me. It offered so much more than gore and character relationships. It made me feel something visceral, and just when I read that last paragraph in this book, you know, I may have spiraled. I mean, I literally remember where I was sitting and reading that last paragraph, closing the book, and just kind of having to sit by myself and cry and think about everything that I had read. So that is why this one takes the top spot for Grady Hendrix books for me. So there you have it. That is my ranking of Grady Hendrix novels. I need y'all to sound off in the comments and let me know what you think of this rating. What is your number 1? What is your least favorite? I'm dying to know, because I feel like, you know, anytime you have rankings for any sort of fandom, they're pretty much the same across the board. But a Grady Hendrix ranking, whether I'm watching them on the internet, talking to people that I know in real life, no one has the same ranking. And I think a big part of that is the fact that, again, Grady Hendrix's real horror of his books is real life horror. And again, I was so disappointed with Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. I feel like I had been looking forward to that book for so long, and it just, I don't know, it just did nothing for me. So, that being said, I'm still very much looking forward to the next book that he gifts us with. I'm just saying, Grady, if you're looking for a topic, can we do werewolves? If you know, you know. If you've been here, if you watched the Nurse Course video, you know that that's what I was gonna request, because that's what we do around here. Hopefully you enjoyed my ramblings about Grady Hendrix in this video. If you did, give it a big ol' thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so when new videos hit the channel, you'll be notified. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll catch you nerds later.